So, Chodesh Tov. And today is, doubly speaking, the Chodesh Tov. So Chodesh means renewal. And today is the renewal of the people of Israel. If you turn to the first verse of chapter 19 of Shemot, of Exodus, as we already explained yesterday, this chapter begins in an unusual manner. But it says, B'chodesh HaShlishi. It starts a new chapter because this third month was a completely new experience for mankind. That's how we explain that here there's no Vav, as we have regularly. Even when it's a new book of the Chumash, it begins with a Vav. It's something that took place in the flow of time. But in the third month, something took place which was above time. From the direct revelation of the Creator with 3 million people, which had never happened, and as it's described also in Shemot, in this manner it won't happen again. So we'll just say again, Rosh HaShlishi, the third month, it's Tzeit B'nei Yisrael Eretz Yisrael, for the people of Israel going off the land of Egypt, Bayom Hazeh, and this also emphasized in this word Bayom Hazeh, because it should have said Bayom Ahu. Rashi already points this out, on that day. Bayom Hazeh means this day. And this day is a concept that goes through the Torah, that many of the laws of the Torah consider they're not something for the past, but something for the present. But here also says the event of Am Yisrael coming to the desert of Sinai was on this day, which means today. How do we understand it today? So we described it yesterday, that we know, it's already mentioned in the first prophecy, which was revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu at the snare. The snare was in the desert. That there was already given a prophecy starting from the burning bush, which was a premonition of the fire of Hashem, which doesn't become consumed, which was afterwards revealed in the same spot, not just to one person, Moshe, but to the whole people. The Eish ala Amid Sinai, on the mountain of Sinai. So maybe I already mentioned how we can understand that the greatest event which ever happened in history was this event. And nevertheless, after the revelation of the Decalogue, there's no more holiness left on the Dvar Sinai. In other words, it's something which is taken out from space and time for the future. Can you remove that? The fan's not being used. Just not. Yeah. So we saw it yesterday, but it's that the way in which this described an event which took place in a way beyond time and space, to be applied to all time and space which human beings experience. Although perhaps we couldn't, the people of Israel, when they experienced that, did not really appreciate it. But today we appreciate it, because this revelation is perhaps the only way in which we can hope that mankind's going to be saved from self-destruction. And then it says, we discussed already the second verse, they traveled away from the freedom, they came to the desert of Sinai, they encamped in the desert, then so what's the significance of the repetition and the change? Or it says they encamped in the desert. So why does it again, and Yisrael encamped there, opposite the mountain? So how can you answer it? What does this teach us? The
heart and the kuf and the body was there.
The first one was mentioned in Rabbi, and second one is in a singular.
It changes over in the middle of the verse from plural to singular. And when they were traveling, they still regard themselves as separate individuals. But when Am Yisrael decided, they knew what they could expect, an enormously great level of spiritual experience, they decided we'll all work together as one people. Because Hashem is making this revelation not to us individuals, but to us as a special people. And therefore, they decided, like Rashi said, that it was B'lei Echad K'ish Echad. They went with one heart. They decided we are now more aware of our common high mission as Yisrael, to demonstrate that God rules the world. And this we learn opposite the mountain. Because the mountain, there was, according to what the Ramban emphasizes, this mountain was covered with a cloud of glory. So they knew that cloud of glory represented the presence of Hashem, who had accompanied them with the clouds of glory from the moment they went out from Egypt till now. And then they saw that the clouds are at the top of the mountain. So now let's go to verse 3. So can one of you read the Hebrew? Maybe David read the Hebrew, Moshe? Verse 3. Chapter 19. Explain that chapter 19 contains the root Dvar. It contains it 10 times. And the number 10 is prominent. It's repeated very often. The Chumash, Aseret HaDvarim, Aseret HaDibrot. And the significance of the 10 is, as is explained also in Pirkei Avot, it corresponds to the 10 sayings in which the world was created. And they correspond to the 10 words, the 10 declarations of the Aseret HaDibrot. For 10 represents Eser, is similar to the word Osher. Osher means wealth. It's the spiritual wealth of the human race, with the concept of the highest level of harmony, which is the reason why the human being has 10 fingers, because each finger is different. The right hand is different from the left hand, but they all work together. How does the body work? The body works with an enormous level of harmony. There's so many different functions in all aspects of the limbs of the body. And when is a person healthy? When they all work in harmony. If there is some clash, that creates illness. See, that's the concept of the 10. Anyway, so can you read this verse first in Hebrew?
Moshe?
Yes.
Moshe Allah El Haelohim Vayikra Elav Adonai Min HaHar Lemo Ko Tomar Leveit Yaakov V'Taged Livnei Yisrael.
Can you translate?
Read out the translation.
No, you can read it.
And Moshe went up to God, and the Lord called to him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Yaakov, and tell the children of Israel.
So now, can you say the Rashi? Somebody got the Rashi here to read it? None of you have Rashi, permission to Rashi? So I'll just read the Rashi. If you haven't got it in front of you, might as well just read it in English. So Rashi says, Moshe went up the mountain the second day, and we know that every time he went up, it was early in the morning. But it says later on, described in Vayeshke Moshe Baboker. But this also teaches us, want to come near to Hashem, you have to come early in the morning. Because all of these verses speak to us, how can we today also receive the Torah? And every day is a new day. It said by Yom Hazeh, it says in the first verse. But what was the message? What is it called? Thus should you say. You should say these words and in this order. So, you know, there's a British concept of manners, which is called ladies first. But like most good things in the world, we find them mentioned first in the Bible. So where's it mentioned in the Bible, ladies first? In this verse. That's it. You've got to make sure it should be in this order. Who comes first? The Beit Yaakov come first. Who are the Beit Yaakov? Elu Anashim. Why are they called the house of Yaakov, the women? Why?
Because they build up the...
Rashi says,
That's the bite.
yes, the purpose of a woman is to build up a home. A home for babies. And men can't do that. Men have not got the biological ability to make a home for embryos, or even a home for little babies after they're born. So who supplies the home for each human being? It's the mother, it's the woman. And they come first. That's why the sages say, a person who has a girl before a boy, they say a girl first, Siman Tov Banim. Should know if the girl is born before the boy. Although everybody says, I want the boy first, I want the firstborn, I want to make it Pidin Aben. But in a certain way, it's a big advantage. People who know a lot about families, they know that if the boy is born first, there's often a lot of jealousies created as a result. The boy thinks, I'm the firstborn, and the others are jealous of him. He's got a special position, which he does have, but he becomes self-centered. It's not so simple. A girl first is much easier. The girl is quite pleased to be able to look after the babies when they are born, to help the mother. Well, the boy can't so easily look after the babies. The girl naturally has this attitude to help in the house, which means that the boys can grow up more independently. Anyway, so therefore the Beit Yaakov, Elu Nashim. And to them you have to speak Tom. Now here we have an important understanding of the words of the Bible, that every word has a different nuance, a different aspect, not as in other languages, where to say something is a general statement, can include speaking, can include telling, can include ordering, saying something. In Hebrew, each word has got its specific meaning in the Bible if you study it thoroughly. So you find quite a few words for speaking. One is Omar and one is Lahagid. What's the difference between the two? Loma means to say and Lahagid means to say. And here it says Tokot Toma, so you should say, and the Tagid is Neisel, and tell the children, to say and to tell, what's the difference? So what's the difference? The Hagid.
Say is more like
If you have to go to the roots, there's a Hebrew word neged. Neged means opposite. Opposite means you see it clearly. And all of a sudden it's mean, neged means to oppose. Lihit naged means to oppose somebody else. To make a confrontation, perhaps the best English parallel. To confront can have a positive meaning, because be confronted with something means to see it more clearly, and sometimes it can mean to challenge. When you're confronted with something, it doesn't always fit in with you. You've got to know how to protect yourself sometimes against confrontations. So this is Tagel of Bnei Israel. You have to give the Bnei. Rashi says the difference is Tagel is tell the men also the sanctions, the punishments, the dikdukin, and the details of the mitzvot. These were explained to the males, the varim hakashim kekidin, words which were harsh, like sinews. That means you've got to know clearly. The men have to hear clearly, Lo tirtzach. You are not permitted under any circumstances to murder, to commit adultery, to steal, to tell lies, and not even to covet. You've got to tell it firmly. To women, you've got to say, Lo Oma means to explain it. Lashon Raka, that's what Rashi says. It's a soft explanation. I also tell you that ladies first is important. Do any of you know which movement has taken on the name Beit Yaakov?
Which school for the girls?
Seminary.
The girls' school.
Yeah. And you know, in Eastern Europe, when this was founded, the Beit Yaakov, it was like this. Do any of you know the history of Torah education in Eastern Europe? The boys were sent to Yeshivat. And the Yeshivat, many of them, when the Haskalah came, means a strong movement of enlightenment, came to Poland and to Russia, then there were many of the males that didn't fit in so well. It was too difficult for them. They became assimilated and they left learning. On the other hand, the girls, since in the early times the girls were kept in the house primarily. They got most of their Torah education from their parents. And they didn't establish proper Jewish schools, but the girls who had talents, they sent them to learn music and sometimes even literature in non-religious or even sometimes non-Jewish schools. So the girls also became more enlightened, as it were. They called it enlightenment, haskalah, and they certainly were not very keen even to marry a person whose education was in the yeshiva, where there was almost no secular education. So then began the Beit Yaakov movement that said we've got to create schools which are suitable for women. And that created a whole body of hundreds and thousands of Jewish girls who learned thoroughly and reached a high level. It also included secular education to some extent. It's really secular is wrong expression. It's just that they were subjects that had to do with knowledge of the world. But at the same time, they learned a lot of Jewish thoughts, Torah thoughts. They learned the Tanakh well, and they learned all the halachot, and they became motivated to build up Torah homes, which in turn produced far more attachment in a positive manner to young boys. Because all the nice looking girls were in Beit Yaakov, and they only wanted someone who'd been to yeshiva, so they made sure they would do well in the yeshiva. So it's the Beit Yaakov that really helped to establish the strong yeshiva movement, which then became very strong, and even the Kollel movement became strong. And that's what's happening today. The Beit Yaakov, they educate the best girls, the most talented girls that exist in Israel are in the Beit Yaakov. And the whole, as is well known, they have a better record even in subjects such as English and mathematics than in the non-Torah schools. A far higher record, because first of all it's not co-educational, and the general schools are, and co-educational schools, even in America they begin to realize that today, it does not make for better discipline or better motivation for learning, because a lot of the time, you know, the guys and the girls are more interested in one another than what the teacher wants to tell them. As a result of which they don't have such success. And the success rates in the Beit Yaakov in such subjects, mathematics, English, history, geography, are the highest in the country. And that's why in the workplaces also, they are top priority. Many businesses like to take them to go and to get jobs. And obviously also that the best minds you'll find, also highest level of mind, you'll also find in the yeshivot and the kollelim. In fact, perhaps you don't know so much, but there's a whole special section of the scientific development that is required for army purposes, where some of the highest positions are taken over by people from kollelim. Because they're disciplined in studying and learning, but the discipline we know in the general schools, the discipline and motivation to have high intellectual gains is sidestepped. And that's why you'll find there's so many Russian parents, especially, but also in other countries, who have been used. Can you use this, yeah? Who have been accustomed to a high level of result in school subjects. So today,
That could be a week old.
from one or two schools, today there are over 60 schools, which are especially targeting. Today they target not only Russian parents, but also many Israeli parents who are agnostic. They don't follow a religious lifestyle, but they prefer to send them to these schools because there's moral teachings involved. They don't just teach the subjects, they also teach discipline, how to behave. So as a result, they also teach them how to discipline their character to be able to have success in schools. And of course, this is a widely known situation. That's why it says here, Beit Yaakov, in fact, produces the Bnei Israel. The Beit Yaakov movement, when it's hinted at here in the Chumash already, start with the women. Ladies first.
Amen.
The Beit Yaakov in Eastern Europe was by Sarah Schneer, as I understand it. Sarah Schneer was the one who was the original founder.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that at least initially there were serious objections by some of the Rebbeim to educating women in Torah. That may have been overcome in time, but at least initially there was a feeling among some of the Rebbeim that this was not proper. Is that so?
But most of the consensus of all the Rabbanim was, shortly after the start, they should give it maximum support. Perhaps, let us say, for those Hasidic rabbis who wanted their daughters to have non-Torah subjects, and perhaps wasn't, for them wasn't necessary, you might say. And on the whole, for those who were under the constant direction of people who were, let's say, on a high level of a Hasidic way of life, so they didn't accept that. That goes on even until today. There's a small section that they don't have objection to Beis Yaakov, but they prefer to send their daughters to places, schools, which run under their auspices for a more limited number of Am Yisrael that don't need it. I mean, you have here. I mean, it can also happen in some of the shchunot, certain shchunah, and in America, it's in a place like Monroe. So the Satmar Rebbe has got his own structure, a structure of education all the way through, which is also they're very successful in it. They're able to teach them to recognize that what we have in the Torah gives in itself enormous moral level, higher moral level, and do it in a spirit of joy, in a spirit of a happy education, a happy family. It works quite well. Here also, in Meir Sharim, you have such schools. But the vast majority of Torah Jewry requires the Beit Yaakov. And that was even recognized by these Hasidic rabbis. This is what for our daughters, perhaps they don't need it. But the wider Torah community requires it.
There is a problem.
Yes.
If you don't educate the Torah girls, who will the Talmud Chacham marry? Who will the Talmud Chacham marry? What do they have in common? If the girl is totally unlearned and he's schooled in Talmud, there's no connection whatsoever unless the young girl brings up to a certain level.
Yeah.
There's no way of matching.
But the girls were not necessarily not learned at all. They were learned at home. It was just they got a much stronger education when they started to do the Beis Yaakov. But I mean, like a daughter of a rabbi was still going to be someone.
But not everybody had parents as a rabbi. You know,
Yeah, well,
most of them were just superficial learning.
Okay.
And school is
Look, there's always
discipline
fringe
and-
elements, but on the whole, I must say that the Torah education does not have to be, and shouldn't be, the whole essence of Am Yisrael, 12 tribes. They don't all have the same approach. Even according to the Torah, you've got to consider Am Yisrael as one. But we're all one, but we have different needs and different characters as individuals, also as groups. They also need a variety. And today we have the situation of a large variety of forms of education, also in the world of Torah. Now let's go on to verse 4. Who wants to read verse 4, the Hebrew?
I'll read.
Read it, yes, please.
Atem, Raitem, Ashad, Asiti, B'Mitzrayim, V'Aseh, Asa,
Etchem.
Itchem, Al, Knafei, Nashlim, V'Avi, Itchem, Alai.
Can you translate it? Got translation?
You have seen what I did to Mitzrayim, and now I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself.
Well, I think this verse has special reference to the position of our yeshiva. Why? Can't finish Harim. It's a street. Well, can't finish Harim near us. So, any of you have the Rashi?
Yes, I have the Rashi.
In English?
Yes.
Can you read the Rashi in English? Atem Item. Just read the Rashi.
You have seen, it is not a tradition that you have. I do not send to you a verbal account. I do not have testimony presented to you by witnesses. Rather, you have seen what I...
Let's understand these words. So first is, what I'm telling you is not a tradition. Well, what Rashi mean to emphasize? It is also for us it's a tradition, isn't it? But what is emphasized here? Atem reitem. You know, seeing is believing. You have a tradition, you heard it. You rely upon the person who tells you, or perhaps you don't rely upon it. But you've seen it yourselves. So this chapter emphasizes, you have seen it. What have you seen?
Miracles.
Huh? Yeah.
The miracles
Yeah,
of
I've
God.
seen. If you want some fresh air,
Yes, very much.
maybe open the door, or you can put on the fan. My turn. So he said, I'm not telling you words. I'm not giving you testimony. I'm not bringing you witnesses, Ella. You've seen it. It's been your own experience. What have you seen?
What he did to Mitzrayim.
Carry on, the English. What I did to Egypt?
Rather, you have seen what I did to Egypt. The Egyptians were indebted to me for several sins before they attacked you, but I only exacted punishment from them through you.
That means you witnessed the 10 plagues. Even though you weren't so close to me. Now, on this basis also, since this passage is one that we should look at anew, so the sages say a person should recognize whatever happened in Egypt is as though he was involved with it. Although for us it is a tradition, but the souls of the people of Israel should try to get it. They went through this experience, and we should try to reenact it as much as possible. And what does it mean? See that? I lifted you up on eagle's wings. Can you read the English Rashi?
And that I carried you. This refers
means I carried you.
Yeah.
This refers to the day that Israel came to Ramses. For Israel was scattered throughout the land of Goshen, and in a very short time, when they were about to travel and to depart, they were all gathered to Ramses. Onkelos rendered, and I carried, and I transported him. As if the Hebrew text were, and I made you travel. He amended the literal implication of the text in a manner respectful to God who is above.
And what is the metaphor of eagle's wings? Next Rashi.
I can finish it. Like the eagle who carries its fledglings that clings upon its wings.
Means the young ones, its wings.
For all other birds put their young between their feet, because they are afraid of another bird that can fly above them. But the eagle is afraid only of man, lest man shoot an arrow into him, because no bird flies above him. Therefore, the eagle puts the fledgling upon his wings. He says, better that the arrow should enter me than my son. I too did so, as we find in the eagle and the angel of God traveled, etc., and came between the camp of Egypt, etc. And the Egyptians would shoot arrows and catapult stones, and the cloud would intercept them.
So the concept which Rashi develops is that Hashem protected Am Yisrael at the highest level and lifted them up. The deeper explanation of this, given by the other commentators, is connected with the subject of counting the Omer. What does it mean Hashem pulled up the people to the highest level? We already discussed in the previous shir that there's a difference in Shabbat and Yom Tov. What's the basic difference?
You can cook on Yom Tov. Food preparation.
Food preparation. The concept.
Yom Tov is calendar based, where Shabbos is creation based.
But the basis of the difference between the essence of Shabbat and Yom Tov is mentioned in the Gemara. The Shabbos is fixed, the holiness of Shabbat comes from above. We're all given an Neshama Yetera, an extra soul power from above. But Yom Tov, we have to prepare from below. It's explained in the Zohar as Itarut Le'ela, Itarut Le'tata. Hitorot Lamala or Hitorot Lamata. Shabbat is a power of holiness, as was demonstrated by the Mon, also comes from above. And we have also a higher soul power given from above. Yom Tov, we've got to create it from below. Mekadosh Israel, Bazmanim. Israel itself has to meet Hashem. The only exception we find for this is by the counting of the Omer. It says you've got to count from the Morah of the Shabbat, and here we have the great argument that took place with the Sadducees, the Tzeddukim. How did the Tzeddukim explain it? Mocharat Shabbat, you start counting from the Morah of the Shabbat.
They said the Sunday.
It's the Shabbat, the first Shabbat during Pesach. So if the first day of Pesach is Shabbat, there's no difference between Pharisees and Sadducees. But in every other case, if the Shabbat is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever day it is, then you start bringing the Omer and counting the Omer from Sunday.
Incredible.
Huh?
So this year it was no machloikis between Sadducees and...
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Also, there's a certain connection between the choice of Sunday as the holy day rather than the Shabbat, which goes back to the cult of the Sadducees. The Sadducees, they established this, the Sunday of Easter time and the Sunday of Pesach time has special holiness, because that's the time when you bring the Omer offering. That's got there are some links between that and the early Christians. In any case, the But the question is, why does the Chumash call the traditional Shabbat, where we say Yom Tov is not called Shabbat? So why is the first day of Yom Tov called Shabbat? The answer is because when Am Yisrael were on a low level, even assimilating to idolatry amongst the Egyptians, and the lowest spiritual level, but Hashem lifted it up to the highest level. In other words, the first Pesach was also Itaruta de Leila, which is expressed in this verse. I brought you to me, to the highest level. I lifted it up that you should be close to me. When Am Yisrael went out, all of a sudden, we were transformed from slaves to the people of Hashem. It said, they all came out with a high level of spiritual power, but it wasn't their own. So Hashem says, I've lifted you to the top of the mountain, but no, you're not on that level. You're not at the top of the mountain. You're not yet ready to receive the Torah. I just gave you power from above. Now I've got to work from below. That's the concept of Sfirat HaOmer. So it came to my mind that Hashem does this to many of us in life. Especially, let's say, over the years I've asked many people who made the change from agnosticism or from a permissive lifestyle to a Torah lifestyle. And what made you start, what triggered off your change from the secular, so-called secular life to a Torah life? And there are many who can say, well, I had some sort of inspiration from above. One person told me, well, had some dream of closeness to a higher power. When he came out of the dream, he said to himself, well, I've got to find that higher power. And then he set about it to reach a high level. Well, there are other people, they come to sometimes in a time of trouble also, they come to a higher religious experience, and then they enter into Torah life. At the beginning, Torah life seems to be a big light. It even applies to let's say a person whom first time in his life he's able to be at the Kotel. It's a great experience and he feels a spiritual elevation, but then afterwards it becomes routine. So that's what Hashem is telling us. Your mitzvah, I know that some people that have an experience of Shabbat, so they find it very elevating. The first time they go and bit in the Rosh, or they hear a certain Rosh, it elevates them. And then your life is filled with a certain light. And then afterwards, the light goes down. And Boruch and the Yeshiva also told me, when I started off it was fantastic, but now it's become dimmed. It's just the routine. So maybe that's the concept of Sfirat HaOmer. Hashem gives us inspirations at certain times, but then, unless you work on it, it goes away. But Hashem is giving you from above that inspiration, so that you work on it. I mean, I can even speak from my own experience, or I was brought up religiously. Nevertheless, there are certain experiences I had inwardly that gave me great motivation, that came not from me, that came from above. And since I didn't work hard enough myself, it went away. So that Sfirat HaOmer means it's like you teach a person to swim. It's called mashal. A parent teaches a person to swim. So the first time, the person he won't dive into the water. The child won't dive into the water. You've got to hold the child. Now, however, if you keep holding the child each time, you'll never learn how to swim. The person's got to hold the water, hold the child, even put him under the water, and hold him And then the next time you tell him, I've got to do it yourself. And if you don't, you've got to give him the help initially, but afterwards he's got to work himself. The same applies to certainly teaching anything to children. If parents constantly grasp hold of their children, even when they're starting to walk, and they don't let go, the child won't learn how to, the child is only crawling, he won't learn how to walk. You've got to give help at the beginning, and then let them go themselves. That's what Hashem did. He took Am Yisrael, said even they were also idolaters, but I lifted you up right to the top. But now you have to work 49 days to reach the heights. That's how I bring you unto me. Hashem does it with us all the time. I think He did the same with us, the nation of Israel, in the land of Israel, when He gave us the enormous miracles of independence, which at the time they inspired people. But then afterwards people forgot about Hashem. And even more so, the miracles of the 6-day war. You should see in the mass media, which I had preserved at the time, I gave a talk on it also in one of our magazines, the early magazines. All the mass media said it was a miracle war. There were so many miracles. We have to thank Hashem. And the chief of staff quoted the Pesukim, which we never quoted Pasuk before. Ze hayom asa Hashem nagila v'nitzmacha po, said by the chief of staff. But then after the 6-day war, people forgot about it. So it caught us napping on Yom Kippur. Yes, so many made a picnic on Yom Kippur. We forgot about the miracles. We forgot about the fact that Hashem showed us these miracles so that we should all do teshuvah. In fact, it did give a great spurt to trigger off more strongly the teshuvah movement. But those who were responsible could have done, we did not do enough. So that's the lesson. And now the more. So I just want someone to translate the next verse, verse 5. Just say it in English, meanwhile. Have you all got it in front of you? Say it in Hebrew. Yeah. Someone read it in Hebrew, verse 5.
ועתה אם שמוע תשמעו בקולי ושמרתם את בריתי והייתם לי סגולה מכל העמים כי לי כל הארץ.
Can you translate it? Give the translation.
Now therefore, if you will obey to my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own treasure from among all peoples. For all the earth is mine.
Now, I'll tell you, that's the present translation. In the authorized version of the translation of the Bible, initially by King James, it says there, you should be unto me a peculiar nation amongst all the peoples. Peculiar. Peculiar in Middle-aged archaic English means special. Nevertheless, this is the concept often understood as the chosen people, on which some have said how odd of God to choose the Jews. But now I want to bring you here as this is the mission statement of the people of Israel. Hashem gives us a mission. And I'm going to paraphrase for you the explanation given by Zafona. Zafona was a brilliant scholar in Torah, he was also a doctor. He was also the teacher of Rosh, if you heard of Rosh, as you know. Anyway, he says this, what does it mean you should observe my covenant? It's the covenant which I will make on you receiving the Torah. by saying, Nasa v'nishma. If you choose to accept it, and what does it mean? You should be a treasure, because Segula means a treasure from all the nations. It says, although all mankind is valuable to me from all other beings on this globe, because the purpose of this globe is the human being. As the sages say, beloved is man who was created in the image of God. By the way, this fits in with what is one of the most widely accepted scientific theories today, that the globe and life on the globe is what's called anthropocentric. In other words, it's all in order to give this possibility for the human being to exist. There's an aspect of purpose, even accepted by evolutionists, concept of purpose, which goes through all aspects of creation on this globe, which demonstrates this globe is intended for the development of the human being. And the human being, according to Bereshit, is there to develop the image of God. So therefore God says, I want, Kili kol haaretz means, I want the whole earth to come to me. So you'll ask me, what's the difference then between the Gentile world and the Jewish world? Difference like this. It's true, the whole earth belongs unto me, and the Hasid Umot HaOlam, and all the saintly people of all the nations are most precious unto me, b'li safek, without doubt. But you have to be a Mamlechet Kohanim, you have to be a kingdom of priests. And this is the Segula. The Segula, the precious situation of the people of Israel, is that you are the ones who must be priests, lahavin ulahorot, l'chol hamin ha'enoshi, likro kula b'shem Hashem, to give an understanding and to teach all human beings to call upon the name of Hashem, as Isaiah says, chapter 41, that you should teach mankind to serve me with one shoulder, the unity. As Isaiah says, in future, you, the people of Israel, will all be called the Kohanim of Hashem. As it says, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah means the teaching and guidance will go out to all the nations. In Goy Kadosh, that's what happened in the future, when it says that everything in Yerushalayim in future will be holy, be sanctified, to bring the Torah to the whole of mankind. So this is a very vital statement, not only for the thousands of years ago when it was given, but was even more important today. So anyway, for tomorrow's Shia, I would like you to bring the Chumash with Rashi as well as the Ramban. And these verses, we have to look at the Ramban inside.